The Guardian leads on the UKIP leader Nigel Farage saying anti-discrimination laws should be abolished. There's more on that in the newspaper, which says there's anger at Mr Farage, suggesting racism is no longer a problem in the UK. Sister paper The Independent goes with the same main story. The picture there, David Duckenfield, the senior police officer who's admitted lying about events on the day of the Hillsborough disaster. So let's bring in Julia and Vince. And should we go to, well, several of the papers have this on the front page. Farage, scrap race discrimination laws. It comes from an interview he's done.
With Channel 4 in a programme called Things We Won't Say About Race That Are True, which is a conversation between him and Trevor Phillips, the former leader of the Equalities Commission, or it might have been the Commissioner for Racial Equality in those days. Anyway, yes. There we go. Where he says this really surprising thing that discrimination laws should be scrapped. That employers it shouldn't be illegal for an employer to discriminate against one worker because he's a different race than another.
Is that because he thinks it's no longer a problem in the UK?
That is why he says it. But that is a strange reason to scrap a law. That would suggest if there's laws that aren't being used because we don't need them so much because they aren't being used, well, fine, these laws are still being used. But also, if you thought, if you think the problem's solved, there's no problem with still having the law there.
Yes, exactly.
This is absolutely disgraceful, this interview, I think, from what is quoted as saying. The BNP wouldn't disagree with any of the words that he said in this interview, and that really gives me a sick feeling.
I don't think it's disgraceful for anybody to express their views.
I just think it's a ghastly view.
I think it's a really strange view for someone as intelligent as Nigel Farage is, and he is intelligent, not just that he thinks it, but that he says it out loud. That's what throws me on this. The UKIP leader has said that, you know, basically we don't need race discrimination legislation. It's a bit confused in some of the copy about, we're talking about hiring a British employer being allowed to hire a British worker rather than a foreign worker. Well, goodness me, Gordon Brown said that openly, you know. But that's not the issue. He's talking about how, look, it's just, there isn't a need for racial discrimination laws because, you know, the colour is not an issue. I mean,
says a middle-aged, public school-educated white man.
And I think it's very, you know, I don't experience any racism either. Funnily enough, for being a middle-class white woman. And yet, bizarrely, if you asked people who were not white and middle class, they may have a different experience. When I was on LBC Radio, I did so many phone-ins. We talked about, you know, racism in the police, racism in employment, and it was extraordinary how many people would call in and what they experienced. Some of it blatant, some of it is really hidden, and even down to the likes of someone just trying to go and get a flat and turning up and being told, oh no, the flat's already gone, and then a white person turning up 5 minutes later and told, oh yes, come and have a look at the flat. And this happens in jobs if the CV suggests that you are not likely to be white, and people don't get the job. If your name's John Smith, you do. And the idea that race isn't an issue in this country, in this day and age right now, is a nonsense.
So the says dismay at claim that racism is no longer a problem. Is this going to affect Nigel Farage? Will it win him support? Will it lose him support?
A week ago, if you remember, there was that whole business about the immigration cap, which we thought was the centrepiece of UKIP's next manifesto, saying, well, there won't be that immigration cap, which will have dismayed a lot of his supporters. So I think that this is timed to say to those on the right and the far right, look, mate, we're still on your side. We're still not that comfortable with those brown people. I'm afraid that's what he's saying. That is what he's saying.
Although you could argue the other way around, he's saying it's not an issue. And he's saying we're a colourblind party. I mean, I think he's completely wrong.
Yes,
absolutely. But I think
I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced, and I think the reasoning, as you say, if it's not needed, don't worry about the law.
Just leave it there.